My name is Captain Ryan Holt, Terran Defense Fleet, and I'm writing this because someone needs to know what really happened out there beyond the Veil Nebula. The official report says Commander Sareth died in combat. That's what I told them. That's what they needed to hear, but the truth is more complicated than that. The truth is that the enemy I swore to kill became the reason I'm still alive to write this. It started 3 months ago when my ship, the Valiant, was assigned to patrol Sector 9, deep in contested space where the border between human and Zynar territory blurred into a grey zone neither side wanted to claim, but both refused to surrender. We'd been hunting their supply convoys for weeks, hit-and-run attacks that kept their forward bases starving for resources. Command called it strategic harassment. We called it survival. The Zynar had better ships, better weapons, better everything. We had desperation and the knowledge that losing meant extinction. The ambush came without warning. One moment we were tracking what looked like a disabled cargo hauler. The next, 6 Zynar warships materialized from stealth fields, surrounding us like wolves around wounded prey. My tactical officer, Lieutenant Kess, barely got the words, "It's a trap," out before their first volley tore through our shields. The Valiant shuddered like a dying animal. Emergency lights painted everything red. Alarms screaming. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. Engineering reported reactor containment failing. I gave the order to abandon ship. 18 escape pods launched. 3 made it clear before the Zynar's tractor beams caught them. Mine was one of the 3 that didn't. I watched through the pod's viewport as the Valiant broke apart, pieces of her spinning into the void, carrying 63 souls with her, 63 people under my command, 63 names I'd never forget. Then the tractor beam grabbed my pod and I stopped watching, started preparing to die. They brought me aboard their flagship, a massive dreadnought called something in their language that translated roughly to inevitable justice. Subtle. 2 Zynar soldiers escorted me through corridors that felt wrong. Too wide, too tall, designed for a species that averaged 7 feet and saw in spectrums humans couldn't perceive. Everything was angles and harsh lighting and the smell of something chemical I couldn't identify. They didn't speak, didn't need to. Their weapons spoke clearly enough. They threw me into a detention cell that was more like a storage container. Metal walls, no windows, a bench that might have been intended as furniture. I sat down and waited for whatever came next. Interrogation, torture, execution. I'd been through the training, knew what to expect when captured by the Zynar. They didn't take prisoners for humanitarian reasons. They took them for intelligence extraction and psychological warfare. I prepared myself to give them nothing useful and die as slowly as they wanted to make it. The door opened 6 hours later. A Zynar officer entered alone, no guards, which was either supreme confidence or supreme stupidity. He was tall even by their standards, maybe 7.5 feet, with the grey-blue skin that marked him as military caste. His eyes were the wrong color, more amber than the usual silver, and they studied me with an intensity that felt analytical rather than hostile. He wore a commander's insignia on his uniform. The enemy had sent someone important. "Captain Ryan Holt," he said in perfect English, his voice carrying harmonics human vocal cords couldn't produce. "I am Commander Sareth of the Zynar Ascendancy Fleet. Your ship was destroyed. Your crew is dead. You are now a prisoner of war under my authority." He paused, watching my reaction. I gave him nothing. "Do you understand your situation?" "Pretty clear from where I'm sitting." "Good. You will be interrogated regarding Terran fleet movements, base locations, and strategic deployments. You will cooperate fully. Resistance will be met with appropriate measures." He said it matter-of-factly, like reading from a manual. No threats, no emotion, just stating facts. "I've got nothing to tell you that you don't already know." "We shall see." He turned to leave, then stopped. Your crew fought with determination. They died honorably. This will be noted in my report. I stared at him. What? Honor matters. Even between enemies. Especially between enemies. He left before I could respond, the door sealing behind him with a hiss of hydraulics. I sat there trying to process that. The Zynar weren't supposed to care about honor. They were supposed to be cold, efficient killing machines that saw humans as vermin to be exterminated. That's what we'd been told since the war started. That's what justified everything we did to them. But Commander Sareth had just acknowledged my crew's deaths with something that sounded like respect. It didn't fit, didn't make sense. Made me wonder what else we'd been told that wasn't true. The interrogations started the next day. Not torture, questions. Sareth would enter my cell, sit on the floor across from me, making himself physically lower, I realized later, to reduce the threat posture, and ask about fleet deployments, ship specifications, tactical doctrines. I gave him my name, rank, and service number, told him nothing else. He never pushed, never threatened, just asked, recorded my refusal, and moved on to the next question. It was the strangest interrogation I'd ever heard of. After the third session, I asked him why. Why what? He responded. Why aren't you torturing me? Your people don't take prisoners to ask politely for information. You take them to break them. Sareth was quiet for a moment. Is that what your command told you about us? It's what I've seen. I've pulled survivors from your detention facilities, seen what you do to them. And I have seen what your people do in the name of survival. His voice carried something that might have been sadness. War makes monsters of all who wage it. But I am not interested in monsters. I am interested in understanding why we are killing each other. You're killing us because you want our resources, our territory. You want humanity extinct. Is that what they told you? He stood, paced the small cell. We are killing each other because 70 years ago, a human science vessel discovered something in the outer reaches, something biological, something ancient. Your government tried to weaponize it. My government learned of this and demanded its destruction. Your government refused. And here we are, 3 generations later, still dying over a secret so old that most soldiers on both sides don't even know what started the war. I didn't believe him, couldn't believe him. That's propaganda. Perhaps. Or perhaps both our governments have been lying to us for 7 decades because admitting the truth would mean admitting the war was never necessary. He moved toward the door. You will have access to my ship's historical database. Research for yourself. Form your own conclusions. I will not convince you with words. Only evidence can do that. He left, and against every instinct, against everything I'd been taught about enemy misinformation, I accessed the database. Spent days reading files, cross-referencing dates, comparing Zynar records with what I knew of human history. The official narratives didn't match. Human records said the Zynar fired first, unprovoked aggression against peaceful colonists. Zynar records said human military vessels had crossed into neutral space carrying biological weapons. Both sides claimed self-defense. Both sides claimed righteousness. But buried in the classified sections, which Sareth had apparently given me full access to, I found references to Project Genesis, a human deep space research initiative from 72 years ago, studying pre-sentient life forms in the outer reaches, possible applications for accelerated evolution, potential military uses. Then the project went dark, all records sealed, and 6 months later, the first shots of the war were fired. I started asking Sareth questions during our sessions, about the war, about his people, about what he believed. He answered honestly, or at least appeared to. Told me about growing up in a military family, conditioned from childhood to see humans as the existential threat to Zynar civilization, told me about his first combat action, boarding a human colony ship, finding families, children, people who looked terrified rather than threatening. That was the day I began to question, he said, not the war itself, but what we were told about who we were fighting. I told him about joining the Terran Defense Fleet after the Zynar destroyed my home colony, about finding my parents' bodies in the rubble, about swearing to make every Zynar pay for what they'd done. That was the day I stopped seeing you as people, I said. Started seeing you as targets, made it easier to kill you. And now, he asked, now I don't know what I see. That was the truth. Sareth didn't fit the enemy profile, didn't fit the monster narrative. He was just a soldier, like me, trying to make sense of a war that had been going on longer than either of us had been alive. We developed something over those weeks, not quite friendship. The gap between our species was too wide, the history too bloody, but mutual respect, understanding, the recognition that we were both trapped in a machine neither of us had built, but both of us were expected to maintain. He showed me recordings of Zynar colonies destroyed by human attacks. I showed him images of human worlds glassed by Zynar bombardment. We sat in that cell and acknowledged what our sides had done to each other. And for the first time since the war started, I felt something other than hatred for the enemy. The betrayal came on day 37 of my captivity. I'd been moved to guest quarters by then. Sareth's decision over the objections of his second-in-command, a rigid officer named Kelvor, who made no secret of his belief that I should have been executed weeks ago. The quarters were small but adequate. Sareth had even allowed me to receive messages from the other survivors from my crew. Only 2 had made it, Ensign Park and Lieutenant Voss, both being held in similar conditions, both confused about why the enemy was treating us like detained combatants instead of prisoners. I was reviewing fleet data when alarms started blaring, not combat alarms, internal security, the kind that meant a threat from within. I moved to the door, found it locked. Through the small viewport I could see Zynar soldiers running past, weapons drawn. Something had gone very wrong, very quickly. The door opened 10 minutes later. Sareth stood there, his uniform torn, blood on his face. Human blood looked red. Zynar blood looked purple. His was purple. Come with me, now. His voice carried urgency I'd never heard before. What's happening? Kelvor has declared me compromised, claims I've been corrupted by human influence. He's seized command and sent word to fleet headquarters that I'm a traitor to the Ascendancy. Sareth grabbed my arm, pulled me into the corridor. They're coming to execute both of us. We have minutes. Why would they execute you? Because Kelvor discovered I've been communicating with human command, attempting to negotiate a ceasefire, sharing intelligence about Project Genesis. He believes I've betrayed our species. We ran through corridors, Sareth navigating with the ease of someone who knew every inch of his ship. He's not wrong. I have betrayed the war. I no longer believe it serves any purpose except feeding itself. We reached the detention level where Park and Voss were being held. Sareth overrode the locks, released them. They stared at him with fear and confusion. Captain? Voss asked. What's going on? Mutiny, I said. The commander's second just took over the ship. We're all marked for execution. Then why are we following him? Park's hand went to where her sidearm would be, if she still had one. Because he's trying to save us. Sareth led us to the hangar bay, moving fast, checking corners. We encountered 3 guards. Sareth shot 2 before they could react. The third got a shot off that caught him in the shoulder. He stumbled, kept moving. There, he pointed at a small transport ship. That will get you to the neutral zone. From there, you can signal for pickup. What about you? I asked. I'm staying. This is my ship, my crew. Even in mutiny, they're my responsibility. They're going to kill you. Yes, but perhaps my death will make them question why. Perhaps it will matter. He opened the transport's hatch. Go. Now. Before Kelvor seals the bay. Park and Voss boarded immediately. I hesitated. Come with us. You're a dead man if you stay, and a traitor to my people if I leave. I chose this path knowing where it led. I have no regrets. He pushed me toward the hatch. Go, Ryan. Tell your command about Project Genesis. Tell them the truth about how this war started. Make my betrayal mean something. The hangar bay doors started to close. Security teams were pouring in. I had seconds to decide. Grabbed Sareth's arm. Get in the ship. That's an order. You have no authority over me. Maybe not. But you said honor matters even between enemies. Where's the honor in dying for nothing? Come with us. Help us end this. He looked at me, at the closing doors, at the security teams raising weapons. Then he climbed into the transport. I sealed the hatch and took the pilot's seat. Never trained for Zynar systems, but adrenaline and desperation made good teachers. The transport lifted as weapons fire sparked off our hull. We punched through the closing bay doors with maybe 2 meters of clearance. Then we were in open space, running for our lives while Kelvor's ship pursued and Sareth sat in the passenger compartment bleeding and silent. We made it to the neutral zone by burning the transport's engines past safety limits and praying the power core didn't overload. Kelvor's ship chased us for 3 hours before breaking off, probably deciding we weren't worth the political incident of pursuing into neutral space. We drifted there, engines dead, life support on emergency power for another 6 hours before a Terran patrol picked up our distress signal. The patrol ship's captain wanted to execute Sareth immediately. He's the enemy. He's responsible for thousands of human deaths. He doesn't deserve to breathe our air. Commander Price was young, aggressive, the kind of officer who'd volunteered for the war and still believed in clear sides and righteous causes. I'd been like him once, before I'd spent 37 days talking to the enemy and learning he bled the same as anyone. He saved our lives, I said. He sacrificed everything to get us out, and he has intelligence about how this war started. Information that could end it. Or information that's a trap. That's what they do, Captain. They manipulate, they lie, they make you think they're reasonable until they put a knife in your back. Price moved toward Sareth with his sidearm drawn. Step aside. That's an order. I didn't step aside. Then you'll have to shoot me first. Park and Voss stood with me. We'd talked during the escape. They'd been confused about Sareth's motives, suspicious of his actions, but they'd also watched him take a bullet for us, watched him give up his command, his ship, his life rather than let us die. That counted for something. Had to count for something. Price lowered his weapon. You're all going to be court-martialed for this. You know that, right? Aiding an enemy combatant, insubordination, possibly treason. Then we'll be court-martialed together, but he's coming back with us alive, non-negotiable. We returned to Terran space under guard. I filed my initial report, leaving out most of the details about my conversations with Sareth, focusing on the bare facts. Captured, held as prisoner of war, released when internal conflict provided opportunity for escape. Intelligence officers debriefed me for 3 days straight, trying to poke holes in my story, looking for signs of Stockholm Syndrome or enemy conditioning. I stuck to the script, gave them nothing that would further endanger Sareth. He was being held in maximum security detention. No charges filed yet, but the expectation was clear. He'd be tried as a war criminal, likely executed as an example. I requested permission to speak with him. Denied. Requested again. Denied. On the fifth request, Admiral Kess, no relation to my dead tactical officer, but the coincidence felt cruel, agreed to a monitored conversation. They brought Sareth to an interrogation room, hands bound, guards flanking him. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, not physically, but in presence, like something essential had been taken from him. He sat across from me, orange prison uniform making him look even more alien than his military gear had. "Captain Holt," he said, no emotion in his voice, just acknowledgement. "Commander Sareth, how are they treating you?" As well as can be expected for someone who betrayed everything he was raised to protect. He looked at the two-way mirror where I knew observers were watching. "They ask me questions. I answer honestly. They don't believe me. The pattern is familiar. They want to know about Project Genesis, about what you said regarding how the war started. And I have told them everything, shown them the evidence. They refuse to accept it because accepting it means acknowledging that 70 years of death were based on a lie." He leaned forward. "Tell me, Ryan, was I wrong? Should I have let you die on my ship? Should I have maintained the war rather than question it? No, you weren't wrong. I meant it. But I don't know if being right is going to save you. I did not do this to be saved. I did this because continuing the lie felt like a worse betrayal than telling the truth." He sat back. "What happens now?" "They're deciding. War crimes trial, or something else. I'm trying to convince them that you're more valuable alive than dead." "And are you succeeding?" "I don't know yet." He smiled, slight and sad. "Thank you for trying. But I made peace with my fate when I chose to help you. Whatever comes next, I accept it." The interview ended. I walked out feeling like I'd failed him, failed everyone. We'd learned the truth about the war, and it didn't matter. Both sides were too invested in the narrative to let facts get in the way. The machine was too big to stop. The momentum was too great. We were all just parts keeping it running, even when we knew it was broken. The attack came 2 weeks later. Kelvor, apparently unsatisfied with just taking Sareth's ship, had tracked us to Terran space. 3 Zynar warships appeared at the edge of the system, broadcasting demands. Return Commander Sareth for execution or face retaliation. Admiral Kess called it an act of war, called it justification for finally launching the offensive we'd been planning for months. I called it an opportunity. I saw it differently. Saw it as Kelvor cleaning up loose ends. Sareth knew too much, had shared too much, had to be eliminated before the truth spread. The warships weren't there to start a fight. They were there to finish a traitor. And if they had to go through a Terran fleet to do it, that was acceptable collateral damage. The Terran defense fleet mobilized, 12 ships against 3. Should have been easy. Except the Zynar ships were newer, better armed, and commanded by someone who'd spent his career studying human tactics. Kelvor knew exactly how we'd fight, knew our weaknesses. The first engagement lasted 8 minutes and cost us 2 ships. The second lasted 12 and cost us 3 more. We were losing a battle we should have won because our enemy understood us better than we understood ourselves. I was watching from the command deck when Sareth was brought in under guard. Admiral Kess had called for him, though I didn't know why, until Sareth looked at the tactical display and said, "You're fighting him wrong. Kelvor thinks in 3-dimensional chess. You need to think in 4 inches." "We're not taking tactical advice from a war criminal," Kess said. "Then you'll lose. And when you lose, Kelvor will glass this station and everyone on it, including your civilian population." Sareth studied the display. "He's herding you, using your own aggression against you. Every move you make is the move he wants you to make." I stepped forward. "Admiral, we're down 5 ships. He's right. We're losing." Kess looked at me, at Sareth, At the display showing 3 Zynar warships systematically destroying our fleet. What do you suggest? Sareth outlined a strategy. Counterintuitive, appeared to be retreating, but was actually a trap, using our ship's superior maneuverability to compensate for the Zynar's superior firepower. Kelvor would see us running, pursue, and find himself surrounded by what he thought were retreating vessels. It was brilliant. It was also exactly the kind of tactical thinking that had made Sareth one of the Ascendancy's best commanders. Kes gave the order. The fleet executed perfectly. Kelvor took the bait, and for 43 seconds, it looked like we'd won. Then Kelvor did something no one expected. He targeted the station. Not the ships. The station, where 5,000 civilians were sheltering, thinking they were safe because no honorable commander would target non-combatants. Kelvor wasn't honorable. He was pragmatic, and he knew the Terran fleet would have to choose, pursue him or save the civilians. There wasn't time for both. Sareth saw it before anyone else. He's going to fire on the station. He knows you'll break formation to protect it. That's when he'll strike. He turned to Kes. You have to let him shoot. There are 5,000 people down there. And if you break formation, he'll kill them and your fleet. This is the choice he's forcing you to make. There has to be another option. There is. Sareth looked at me, then at his guards. Remove my restraints. Give me access to a communication channel. Absolutely not, one of the guards said. Do it, I said. Admiral, give him the channel. Kes hesitated, then nodded. The guards removed Sareth's restraints. He moved to the communication console and broadcast on Zynar military frequencies. Spoke in his language, words I couldn't understand, but tone I could. Commanding, authoritative, the voice of someone used to being obeyed. Kelvor's face appeared on screen, spoke in that harmonic language. Sareth responded. They argued, voices rising. Then Sareth said something that made Kelvor go silent. The Zynar warships held position, didn't fire, didn't move. What did you say to him? I asked. I told him that if he fires on that station, I'll testify to everything. The truth about Project Genesis, the lies both our governments have told, the fact that this war was never necessary. I'll give the Terran Command everything they need to expose the Ascendancy's role in perpetuating a conflict based on deception, and I'll make sure every Zynar soldier knows their commanders have been sacrificing them for 7 decades to cover up a mistake. Kelvor's ships began to withdraw, not in defeat, in calculation. He'd come for Sareth. Mission accomplished in reverse. Instead of executing a traitor, he'd confirmed one. But killing him now, in front of Terran witnesses, would only validate everything Sareth had threatened to reveal. Better to retreat, regroup, find another way. The Terran fleet didn't pursue. Kes gave the order to stand down. The battle was over. We'd survived. 5,000 civilians had survived because an enemy commander had been willing to burn every bridge back to his own people to save lives on both sides. The aftermath was complicated. Sareth had just saved 5,000 human lives and preserved what remained of our fleet. But he was still technically a prisoner, still technically the enemy. Intelligence wanted him debriefed, analyzed, assessed for every scrap of information he could provide. Some officers wanted him executed anyway, argued that his actions were self-serving, that he was manipulating us. Others wanted him granted asylum, made an example of. Proof that even Zynar could choose peace over war. I spent 3 days arguing with admirals and politicians about what Sareth deserved, what we owed him, what justice looked like when the enemy saved your life. I got nowhere. The decision was kicked up the chain of command, delayed, deferred, turned into committee discussions and policy debates, while Sareth sat in detention, waiting to learn if he'd be executed or exiled, or something in between. I visited him on the 4th day. Found him reading human literature in his cell, learning our language better, trying to understand the species he'd fought against for most of his adult life. He looked up when I entered. "Captain Holt, have they decided what to do with me yet?" "Still debating. Some want you dead. Some want you as an intelligence asset. Some want you gone. No consensus. And what do you want?" I sat down across from him. "I want you free. I want you to live somewhere safe where neither side can reach you. I want you to write your memoirs and tell everyone what really happened. I want the truth to matter." I paused, but I don't think that's going to happen. Because the truth is dangerous to both our governments. Because the truth means admitting 70 years of death were pointless, and no one wants to admit that. He set the book aside. "Then what will happen? They're going to offer you a deal. Asylum in exchange for silence. You disappear. Live under a new identity. Never speak publicly about the war or Project Genesis or anything you know. In return, you get to live. And if I refuse, then you'll be tried for war crimes and probably executed or returned to your people, which also means execution." I looked at him. I know it's not fair. I know it's not justice, but it's survival, and sometimes that's the best we get. He was quiet for a long time. "If I accept this deal, everything I did becomes meaningless. The betrayal, the sacrifice, the truth. All of it buried so both governments can continue lying to their people. I know, and you're asking me to accept this anyway. I'm asking you to live, because you're right. The truth is dangerous, but it's also valuable. And maybe someday when the time is right, someone will be ready to hear it. But that only happens if you're alive to tell it." He smiled, sad and tired. "You've changed, Ryan. When we met, you were a soldier who saw only enemies. Now you're a man who sees complications. You changed me. Made me question things I thought were certain. Made me see the enemy as a person. I stood, accept the deal, disappear, survive, let the truth wait for a better day." He nodded. "I will consider it." 3 days later, Sareth agreed to the asylum offer. They moved him off station under heavy security, sent him somewhere I wasn't told about, gave him a new identity I wasn't allowed to know. He vanished from records, became a ghost. And the official story became that Commander Sareth had died during the escape from his ship, killed in the fighting, body lost to space. I filed the final report, made it official, made it clean, made it a lie that protected him, and buried the truth. Admiral Kess signed off on it without comment. The war continued. Kelvor was promoted for his aggressive defense of Zynar space. The survivors from my crew were reassigned to new ships, new missions, new chances to die for a war that shouldn't have been. And I was haunted by the lie, by the knowledge that I'd helped cover up something that mattered, by the fact that Sareth was alive somewhere, living under another name, carrying truths that could end the war, but choosing silence because I'd asked him to. The weight of it sat on my chest at night. It made sleep difficult, made everything feel hollow. I'm writing this 6 months after the battle, after the reports were filed, after Sareth disappeared into whatever life they made for him. I'm writing it because silence feels like another betrayal. Because even if this never gets read, it needs to exist. Someone needs to know what really happened. I learned things from Sareth that the Terran Defense Fleet never taught me. Learned that the enemy isn't always what you're told it is. That honor exists even in war. That sometimes the bravest thing a soldier can do is question the orders they're given. He showed me that by example. Sacrificed everything he'd been raised to value because he decided truth mattered more than loyalty. I don't know where he is now, don't know what name he uses or what life he lives, but I think about him often. Wonder if he regrets his choices. Wonder if he found peace in exile, or if he's as haunted as I am by the war we both failed to end. I wonder if he knows that he changed me, changed how I see enemies, changed how I see myself. The war continues. Both sides are still dying for secrets and lies and mistakes made 70 years ago. Project Genesis remains classified, the truth remains buried, and soldiers like me keep fighting because that's what we're trained to do, even when we know better, even when we've learned that the enemy is sometimes more honest than our own command. They decorated me for surviving, for bringing back intelligence, for the battle where Sareth's tactics saved our fleet. They called me a hero, give me a medal, promoted me, send me back out to kill more Zynar, to continue the war, to be the good soldier I was supposed to be. I accepted the decoration, wore the uniform, followed the orders, but inside, I carry the knowledge that the enemy saved my life, that the monster I was taught to hate showed me more humanity than most humans I'd served with. That war doesn't make heroes, it makes survivors. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it makes you question everything you thought you knew. War taught me to kill my enemies, but Sareth taught me something harder: how to forgive one, how to see past the uniform and the species and the history of violence and recognize that we're all just people trapped in systems we didn't create, but are expected to maintain. He taught me that betraying the war might be more honorable than serving it, that some truths matter more than loyalty, that choosing conscience over obedience can cost you everything and still be worth it. I filed a false report, told my superiors that Commander Sareth died in combat. That lie is now an official record, historical fact. The truth died with it, or at least went into hiding, waiting for a day when it might matter, when someone might be ready to hear it. But the truth exists. I know it. Sareth knows it. And now, if anyone ever reads this, you know it too. The war we're fighting isn't what we've been told. The enemy isn't what we think. And sometimes the person trying to kill you is less dangerous than the person giving you orders. I don't know if that changes anything. Don't know if knowing the truth makes a difference when both governments are committed to the lie. But Sareth believed it mattered. Believed that truth had value even when it was buried. Believed that someday, someone would need to know what really happened out there beyond the Veil Nebula. So, I'm writing this, leaving it where it might be found, where someone might read it and understand that the war could have ended, should have ended, would have ended if either side had been willing to admit their mistakes, but they weren't. And so we keep fighting, keep dying, keep sacrificing for lies that both sides know are lies, but neither will acknowledge. Commander Sareth of the Zynar Ascendancy Fleet was my enemy, by every definition that mattered, by every regulation I'd sworn to uphold, by every oath I'd taken. He was the enemy, but he was also the person who saved my life, who showed me that the enemy could choose honor over orders, who taught me that forgiveness isn't peace, it's courage, born from understanding the person you're supposed to hate. I carry that with me now, in every mission, in every battle, every moment when I'm ordered to kill Zynar soldiers who might be just like him, questioning, doubting, trapped in a war they don't believe in but don't know how to escape. I carry the knowledge that somewhere, under another name, the enemy lives free because I helped him disappear. That makes me a traitor by some definitions. By others, it makes me the only person who did the right thing. I don't know which is true. Maybe both, maybe neither. Maybe right and wrong stop meaning anything when you're caught in a machine designed to make you kill people who are exactly like you, except for which government they serve. But I know this. He was my enemy until he saved my crew. And then he became something else, something I don't have words for. Something that war doesn't have room for, but maybe should. Something that gives me hope that this can end differently than both sides expect. If you're reading this, you're probably wondering what you would do. If the enemy saved your life, would you still call him the enemy? If you learned the war was built on lies, would you keep fighting? If you had to choose between loyalty to your command and loyalty to the truth, which would you choose? I chose. I chose truth. I chose life. I chose to betray the war for the person who'd betrayed his entire civilization to save mine. I don't know if that makes me a hero or a traitor. Don't know if history will judge me kindly or condemn me. Don't know if it matters. But I know I made the right choice, and I know that somewhere Commander Sareth is alive, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that has to be enough. So I'll end this with a question for you, whoever you are, whenever you're reading this. If the enemy saved your life, would you still call him the enemy?